Welcome to the Wellness for Women show, where we talk about life, weight loss and everything in between. I'm Faye Caseman, founder of the AAA Way Life and Weight Loss Programme, and I'm here to help you put together the pieces of life and weight loss for one last time. This is an episode of the Wellness for Women show, filmed live in the free Facebook group. Hello, and welcome to a special guest episode of the Wellness for Women show. Tonight we have a special guest, Natalie Trusdale. Now, Natalie, you do need to actually, and one thing I should have checked before we started recording was the pronunciation of your name. So you can tell us what it is in a moment. But Natalie is a self-esteem coach. So welcome, Natalie. It's really good to have you with us.
Oh, thank you very, very much. And it's a family debate, actually. We did have one of the cousins who did used to say it as Trusdale, and we're like, it's Trusdale. And he's like,
yeah, I wasn't sure. I was going both ways.
You know what? Whatever. I've answered to worse things. It's a bit like the, do you remember the show? I can't remember what it's called now. It's Bucket and Bouquet.
Oh, yeah, Mrs. Bouquet.
Yeah, it's a bit like that, really.
Keeping up appearances, wasn't it?
Yeah. We try and be posh and say Trusdale, but then I talk really northern, so I can't really sound posh.
Yeah. You wouldn't believe the amount of times I get asked my name. I have to say my name several times a day at work, and half the time I end up I explain it as it's like basement but with a C.
I was going to say, surely it's casement.
Yeah, I think I've been called all sorts of weird and wonderful things. The weirdest one's Sarah. I've been called Sarah a few times, and I think it's the S in the casement that people hear, and then it all gets somehow jumbled, you know. But with it being Faye, I can kind of understand faith and gay and that kind of sort of rhyming ones. But Sarah just was completely way up. I've had it about 3 or 4 times.
You look like a Sarah, they've decided. So
yeah. So who knows what's going on there. So anyway, names aside, you can call me Bob for the rest of the show if you wish to, because I don't mind what I'm called either. But Natalie's here to tell us about everything that she does. We're very aligned, and this is the first time that we are actually speaking together properly. But I know that what we have is a very similar message, albeit from different angles. So tell us a little bit more about you, Natalie, and what it is that you do, just in case people aren't quite sure what a self-esteem coach does.
Yes, well, it's a good question, because actually when I first started off there, I was a body image coach. Mm-hmm. But what came to my attention was that not many people knew what body image was. So people would come into my group or things, and they would think that I did weight loss, or I was a personal trainer or something, like I was like changing their bodies in some way. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, no, that's actually definitely not it. So I changed it self-esteem, because I am very much like my big issues were definitely around my body. However, I haven't actually fluctuated that much in my body, if that makes sense. All of my my issues with my body were all mental issues and how I felt about my body. So that's where we align quite well, because obviously you come from your own personal experience, doesn't it? So yours is the fact that you yo-yo dieted. I know that, and I know your story then is that when you actually started being kinder to yourself, you found ways that worked for you. But mine was very much on the body dysmorphia level. So very much just a really, really skewed perception of myself. And I always think when it comes to body image and self-esteem, it's a bit like the chicken and the egg to me. I don't know which ones came first.
Yeah.
Whether it was, you know what, I just had a really low opinion of myself generally, and therefore I kind of focused that in on physical appearance because it felt controllable to me. So calories, weight, when there's numbers involved, it felt trackable, it felt controllable. So when all hell would break loose in life, whether, you know, a relationship splits up or I'm feeling anxious, whatever, I would default to what can I micromanage that will make me feel like I've got power, basically. And it came out really quite dysfunctionally. But it ripple effect. So when I talk about self-esteem, I'm very much talking about, yes, about how we feel about ourselves, just our value and our worth. So I'm very much like you, like we can, you know, want to be liked, like we all want to be liked, we all, you know, we all want to fit in, let's have it straight, we're human, nobody wants to not be liked.
Yeah.
But I think sometimes we can we can try and control aspects of ourselves, whether that is how much money we've got, the house we drive, like the car we drive, the house we've got, what our body looks like, the type of clothes we wear, how we talk. When we start trying to manipulate ourselves in order to be liked, what happens is we end up, the more other people like us and we fit in, the more we dislike ourselves.
Yeah.
And then we get stuck into this really horrible place then, where we end up with really low self-esteem. Like, we don't think we can do anything. We're not good enough to do anything. We're just going to fail at everything we do. And it just ripple effects, doesn't it? You know?
Yeah.
It doesn't stick to one area of life. Like, no one's ever like, oh, do you know what? I hate how I look, but I really think I'm amazing at this. We generally, like, the negativity breeds, doesn't it?
Yes.
So, yeah, so I'm very much about just getting us to understand that we can do whatever we want to do, like, and have our own confidence, and, you know, focus more on who we are as a person, less than what we look like or other people's opinions of us in whatever way that is. And talk to ourselves talk to ourselves with more love, be kinder to ourselves, and have better, for want of a better word, healthier, more helpful habits on a daily basis, like the practical stuff as well, because you know, if we are just like, I love eating pizzas and doing stuff, but if I probably had one every day for like breakfast and tea, I probably would feel a bit sluggish. My mental health might not be its best. So, like, I'm always like, let's have balance. Like, nothing's good or bad. Let's have a bit of what we want. But take care of ourselves, you know, sleep, be around people that make us feel good now. So I'm very much about trying to put it all together, like how we think, but also how we behave, because that's our choice, isn't it? How we behave and the impact of that. And pulling it all together, really.
Yeah, and I love that. And again, like I say, absolutely knew that we were going to be aligned in that sense. And hearing you talk as well, like I say, that relationship with food, and I think this is the thing that sometimes is forgotten, that we do all have, again, our own unique relationship, like you say, with food, with money, with other people, all these things. And a bit like you, I'd talk about having a relationship with food, which again, it wasn't something that was in my vocabulary 5 years ago. And so I'm probably in a similar place where it's trying to explain what I do, but the situation still is like, say, wanting people to treat it with love. And I think food as well can be such an emotive one for us. Like you say, in your experience, it was more body dysmorphia. I've got experience of that with loved ones that, you know, it's really difficult. And again, outwardly, people will look at, you know, again, people will judge us no matter what the size and shape of our body, but it's the way that we judge ourselves that's always what's the most important at the end of the day. And you never again know what somebody's actually thinking and feeling inside. And sometimes as well, to be fair, we don't know what we're thinking and feeling ourselves sometimes. And that's why working with, you know, coaches like us, you know, people who work on healing, whatever it might be, you know, helps to bring some of that out, doesn't it?
Absolutely, 100%. I think sometimes we don't necessarily want to talk about the ins and outs of all the thoughts that cross our mind with people in our lives, because we feel like there'll be a repercussion, like there'll be some level of judgment, or maybe they'll change how they talk to us. I know I would like sometimes talk to friends in the past about certain things, and then the next time you see them, it'd be, are you all right? How are you getting on? You think, oh, I just wanted to go out and have a good night tonight. Like, I actually didn't want to talk about that thing again, but like, and it's coming from a place of love and wanting to take care. But you know, I think sometimes if people haven't experienced stuff, it's quite hard for them to kind of get it. So obviously, for me, particularly with the body stuff, that, you know, I was always complimented on how I looked. It was like, oh God, you know, you go to gym all the time, you're so fit, or your stomach's so flat, which I just like praise, which like reinforced for me how important it was for me to look a certain way. So I always say to people, like, be mindful how you give out your compliments, like give balanced ones. Because I will tell my daughters that they look beautiful and pretty, because we all want to be told at some point we look beautiful and pretty. Of course we do. But it can't be, it's got to be balanced, it's got to be mixed in with, you're also intelligent and you're funny and you can do hard things, and no one's perfect. Or get over it. You will fail sometimes. Move on. Like, you know, we have to get told like the combination of stuff, because I would find that people would just, it was always about my physical appearance. And one of my big beliefs, I was stupid. So I was like, I'm really stupid. Like, I'm so much more stupid than my sister. She's the intelligent one. And I've said it before on different chats, that we ended up kind of getting, not intentionally, but put into like little boxes. So Rachel's the intelligent one, who had a pretty face, but she yo dieted, her weight would go up and down. And then there was me who did the netball, and you know, I should kind of focus on like I looked good and had this like stereotypically perfect figure. But like academically, I wasn't as clever as Rachel. So she was the intelligent one. I was more the, you know, doesn't she look pretty? She'll find a husband really easily kind of category. So we ended up then both playing into a little bit. So she kind of like, obviously we both ended up with body issues in different ways, but you know, it was very important to her that she got good grades, and like got praised for that. And it was very important for me that if I put on a dress, if I hadn't received a compliment within the first half an hour about how I looked, my assumption was that people thought I looked horrible.
Yeah.
And that, you know, so I had to have it to be able to feel that way. And I think when we do rely on other people to give us our own validation, it's a really, really dangerous place to be, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And it's something that where, you know, whether we're working on weight loss or not, being aware of that is really important. And certainly if you are somebody who's on a weight loss journey, more often than not, this is the thing that diets don't teach. Diets don't teach that you have actually got to love yourself and learn to love yourself at the whole range of your body shapes and sizes, because you know, it can change. You could get you know, you could get poorly, or you could, you know, or you know, something outside of your control could come in and impact your weight. And then and again, it's not necessarily about weight, but again, it's just like, say, that body image concept that we have, and diets don't really teach that. They just, again, really perpetuate the risk of disordered eating. I'm not necessarily saying that all diets create that, but again, you know, if you're not careful and you don't have the right support through some kind of weight loss journey, then there is risks to, like, say, it going one way or another, because we're not working on that relationship that well, are we? Making sure it's a healthy relationship with food.
Yeah, and I think from like the diet culture side as well, it's like it never ends, does it really? Like if we're looking at physical appearance, like you just said, like we're always going to change. How we look is always going to change, whether we put on weight, lose weight, whether we start to get wrinkles, whether our eyes get blacker, whether our neck starts to sag, stretch marks. Like there'll always be something. Like there's always going to be something that we think I'd quite like that to be different. And I think, like you, exactly like you said, like if we sometimes we think, oh well, I can work on my body acceptance or my self-acceptance once I'm happy with how I look. So it's not really how it works, because all you're doing then is you'll learn to accept that body or that version of you. And when that's not consistent, because it will not be, that's not how we work as humans. We can't look or be in exactly the same situation. It's a bit like if people put all their worth into their job and then they retire or get made redundant, and all of a sudden they're lost. They're like, I have no purpose anymore, and they get really depressed. And it's the same, isn't it? Like, because like nothing's static, is it?
No. No, and it's tied up. I think what we're getting at there is, as well, is about the fact that it's tied up in identity sometimes, isn't it? You know, so when I occupied a larger body, I would use humor. I mean, I still like to consider myself to be a humorous person, but I used to use it as a mask as well, you know. So, you know, sort of the fun bubbly friend, but yet inside I had literally zero self-esteem. It sort of started with some name calling when I was little, and if I'm honest, it wasn't even that bad, but they used to call me Fat Faye, and I think it's only because it rhymed, to be perfectly honest. I was bigger than the kids. I was a bit bigger than,
I didn't get much.
I was a bit bigger than the kids at school, but you know, but I think it was mostly because it rhymed. But actually that stuck with me. That became my identity, even though it was quite a short window of my life. And then into my teens, you know, I really struggled into my teens and into my early 20s, and again just didn't have the tools then. So it's no wonder then that I never really got to know my identity, or then identified as, like I say, the person of that certain body. And you can find that as well when you are working on weight loss, where you know, you're used to having a certain social life, even, you know, one that might be surrounded by eating and drinking, and so sometimes those kind of things can come into that, and it's potentially the same. No doubt there's some something like that sometimes with self-esteem, like say if you look for outside validation, then maybe, you know, if you're going outside, you've got to go outside to find the outside people, right?
Exactly, yeah. And yeah, it is actually. And I know when you just mentioned, then it kind of it brought it to me. So obviously, like particularly with food and stuff like that, when we go out, there's a lot of stuff that triggers if you have a negative body image, or you know, you're trying to lose or gain weight or anything like that. It's really difficult, and people do isolate off, you know, and just go, oh, I won't come for the meal because I'm scared, or make up reasons why we can't go to the meal section of the night out. Yeah. Because we just don't want the awkwardness. Or like me, you would scour the menu before you go, pick the thing that's got the least number of calories. Or I would kind of think, right, well, I'm going to eat that. So if I go to the gym, make sure I burn off 400 calories. And then if I only have that for lunch, I can eat that then, and that'll be all right. So I'd like try and balance out.
Constantly, like you've got a calculator out all day, every day. And like I say, it knocks into not obviously the self-esteem of that goes with it. Well, like you say, really your calorific value was really what was guiding your happiness, rather than your life being the source of that.
I wouldn't be getting the burger and chips or the pizza that I wanted. I'd be getting some like chicken breast in a sauce with new potatoes, and I'd be like, this is not what I wanted.
And you know, the way that I sort of teach weight loss is that you go for what you want first, and then look to make conscious choices from love as to how you might want to level it up. And again, that's the difference, isn't it? Like you said, with not going into something from a self-esteem point of view because you think that you should, or because you're looking for that validation, but coming at it from a completely different position of coming at it from love first. And that actually sometimes making these little tweaks can be an act of self-love for yourself as well, as long as it's done with love, not out of fear, which is where sometimes it comes in with the calorie counting and that, isn't it?
100%. And that exactly like you said, Fat, I'm a very big believer in it's more about what can I add in. What do I need to take? Like, we don't need to take away anything. I used to work in addiction services, so I did group work and one-to-ones in substance misuse for 10 years. And when we were doing like the people get sent to like an alcohol reduction or reduce a heroin or whatever their substance was, and I'm like, let's not focus on a reduction plan. Okay, let's just chat about your life and how you're feeling, because if you, a lot of the time when we're doing anything, whether it's emotional eating, using substances, smoking, whatever, that might be a toxic behavior for us, it's coming from a lack of something, isn't it? It's coming because we're missing something, we're not fulfilled in some way. Like, it's, you know, we're either not managing our stress well, or we feel lonely, or like something's going on. I'm like, so let's work on that, and then you'll find that the rest will sort itself out to a certain degree, obviously. I said, but you know, we can sit here reducing cans, or like not buying certain foods to put in the cupboards to lose weight, but that's not solving the actual problem.
Not solving the problem, no, absolutely. And that's very much that's very much my aim, is to help people to solve that relationship with them. In fact, I call it super sleuthing weight loss. It's one of my the lessons in the membership. But actually it is more about that, like that interconnectivity between the life and the food. And as I say, you know, if we eat because we're bored of an evening or evening snacking or something like that, the food is never the problem, it's whatever happened before it, isn't it? And like I say, the general sort of happiness side of it. So it's obviously been a really personal journey for you. And then, like you say, with your sister there as well, it's one of those where, like you say, it knocks into other areas. So no doubt, without putting words into your mouth, but I could kind of envisage a situation where you were almost both, well, I wish I was pretty, and I wish I was smart, you know, and so then your relationships can then get impacted by what you had going on individually.
Absolutely. You know, the amount of times we argued, probably after a couple of wines, but about kind of like, because I'd be saying something and then she, you know, she might be like, well, it's all right for you, isn't it? You know, so we're talking about relationships or something. I'm like, well, why don't you like blah, 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 and maybe like we should have a lot of criteria. And then we get into an argument about it and she's like, well, it's all right for you, isn't it? You don't find it hard to get a boyfriend. I'm thinking, what's that got to do with like the conversation we're having? So we both came like basically throwing our own insecurities into it and kind of like projecting off. And we do that, don't we? That's what we do. We take our insecurities in situations. But yeah, it's it does ripple effect in so many things. Like I think I would really undersell myself as far as like what I could achieve, like what jobs I could go for. Like I think I stayed on the same salary in the same jobs for like 18 years up until like late 20s, earning hardly anything, because I'm like, well, I can't go for that. I can't do that. When I finished my degree and my master's, it was like, well, yeah, like I got a first in my psychology and health degree, and everyone's like, that's amazing. And I was like, well, it's all right. I mean, it's psychology, though, isn't it? It's like, as long as you can prove yourself either way and you can back up what you're saying, like there's no right or wrong. And people are like, what are you doing? Like, why don't you just say, aren't I amazing? I worked really hard for that, but and that was like, I was about 28 at that point, and I've like still belittling myself down, you know, and staying in relationships that I kind of didn't really want to be in anymore, but the fear of being alone was just far too painful. I would wait until I kind of had someone else lined up. And then I'd leave that relationship and go into that one, like, because it was like a security blanket. Like if someone loves me, I'm lovable, kind of mentality. So yeah, it's just super hard, and I think you can't see it. I think when you're in it, you don't realize how obvious it is to maybe other people, or how much damage you're doing. Do you really? I think, you know, I used to be quite a big blamer. I mean, I can still throw some blame around if I'm given half a chance, but it was everyone else's fault, you know. And don't get me wrong, things do happen in our life that do create a ripple that impacts us in a positive or a negative way, 100%. But I'm really big on encouraging people to acknowledge that, but to let that bit go, because that's where we breathe the negativity. And at the end of the day, if we want to change how we feel, or, you know, how we think about ourselves and the way we behave, that starts with us going, actually, do you know what? Maybe I'm the problem. And that's what I had to do. I'd sit there and go, actually, do you know what? I seem to be I'm going through cycle, and the end result's still the same. Like I get into a relationship and I have the same arguments. I'm the consistent. Like I do this, I'm the consistent. And I have to sit there and go, right, not all of that is my fault. However, if I don't put my hand up and go, right, let's work on how I'm thinking, I can only do my bit. So let me do my bit and then see what happens. And it took me such a long time to get to the point where I was willing to take any responsibility in my own thoughts. A long time.
It's a funny one though, isn't it? Because again, we're not taught these things at school, and I sort of a similar story in a number of different ways, but I can certainly again see the parallels there, where, you know, I didn't speak up, I didn't ask for pay rises, and actually it was only after I'd been through my weight loss journey that I spoke up at work and I said, you know what, I've been here for a really long time and I'm very good at what I do, you know. And because it's one of those things where if you don't tell your own story, sometimes, you know, people, you know, you do have to shout up sometimes. And and again, like you, there certainly was a lot more in there than I realized. So when I actually started my weight loss journey and got introduced to the concept of life coaching and working on your thoughts, you know, and I'd had CBT before, because again, I don't know if you know how much of my story you know, but I'd had periods of depression. I self-harmed when I was a teenager, really didn't want to be around sometimes, had postnatal depression, you know, so I'd had a lot of periods of really depressive times in my life. And it's only now where I'm reflecting back that, again, like you, I went through pretty much until I was 40 in quite a bit of a haze, and I didn't know that I was in a haze. And this is sort of why I'm doing what I was doing, because I've realized how powerful it is to work on your thoughts. And it's a standing joke with my accountability partners where I went, I don't need to work on thoughts. There's nothing wrong with me. And there wasn't obviously anything wrong with me, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
but actually, once I got into working on my thoughts, wow, how much better, how much more vibrant has my life become, because I've gone out of groundhog and just kind of accepting this general malaise and feeling like and it all comes down to self-worth. That was the thing. I didn't think that I was worthy of any more, or that I was enough, and it's very powerful when you can work on that.
Yeah, and I think, and it's like you said, like, but it's that point, isn't it, where you start to pay attention? Because I think sometimes when we've been in that haze for so long, we don't hear ourselves anymore. So we don't hear the fact that
I had thoughts.
We make a mistake and we're like, oh God, what an effing moron. Like, oh God, you can't do anything right. We don't hear ourselves anymore, you know. And I remember years ago, I'd talk to my partner and I'd say something. And he's like, have you nothing positive to say? And I'm like, what are you on about? I honestly, to the depth of my soul, I hadn't realized I was moaning or complaining. I thought I was just talking. And he's like, honestly, it's like every other word is moaning, complaining, you're irritated by something. And I'm like, oh, right. And I still have to catch myself. Like when I get like that now, because we all go through patches where we're going, oh, hold on, I'm being so grumpy, or I'm having loads of thoughts about something and I haven't had thoughts about that for a while. We have to have that check-in, don't we? And go, right, what's going on here? What's being neglected? And it's either like I've been sleeping, I've not been getting fresh air, maybe I've not been doing exercise because I need exercise for my head. And I'll be like, right, I best start getting that habit back in, because I've been spending time with toxic people and like the words are getting in, and then I'm kind of like, yeah, or I'm getting ready and I'm saying things like, oh God, I look really fat. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
I like catch myself like, where the hell did that come from? Because I think it's like sometimes it spits it out. And I'll always say, one of the key things I say to people is, it doesn't matter how much work you do, never expect to never have a negative thought about yourself. Like that's not the point of it. Like you will have far less negative thoughts. They will not be your only thoughts, which they can be, can't they?
Yeah.
But when you have them, you'll hear it, and you'll hear it without judgment. And you'll correct yourself, and then you'll move on and let the thought go. And that's the point we want to get to, isn't it? Because we're not looking for thought perfection. We're looking for the ability to, you know, just reprogram our reaction when we have a negative thought. I think is one of the main things. Once we've heard it, obviously we need to actually hear it first, don't we? Hear the word we use ourselves, and then just do that. And I always say to people who really, really struggle with it, honestly, if you just change the I am to I feel, you will not think that makes a big difference, but it does, because like you said before, Faith, it's the identity piece, isn't it? So if you're and saying, oh God, I'm so fat, oh God, like I look disgusted in this outfit, I'm this, I'm that, and you're saying all these things, but if you look in it and you go, do you know what, right now I feel fat, I said just change it to I feel, because we all know feelings change, we all know that. And if you just swap that language to that as your very starting point, if you struggle too much, and just go, actually no, I'm not fat, I feel fat. There's an example, and I can't think what it's in. It's in one of my resources, and I've said, like, you know, sometimes we go to changing rooms and we try clothes on and they're too tight, because let's have it straight, no shop is the same size. God knows what goes on.
Not even the same outfit on the same run can sometimes be the same size, isn't it?
3 sizes, get 3 sizes and try them all on, and just go with whichever one fits. But we try stuff on and then it's tight. So then we say to ourselves, oh God, I'm so fat. And then, you know, we maybe go home and we either miss a meal or we binge it or we do something, we react to it. And then we go around in the cycle, because obviously now we tell ourselves we're fat and we have no self-control, and we go round and round. And I said, the thing is, what we've got to realize is, you know, you don't, like, the fact that you put your clothes on and the tie doesn't make you fat. Like, you know, and the word fat is just like, we all have fat. It's actually, it's a neutral word that we just attach really.
Yeah, it's only when you attach an emotion to it, a thought and an emotion, that you get the.
Like, it's what you think it means to be fat that's a problem. Because if you're saying to yourself, oh God, I look a bit fat in this, but you haven't got a negative meaning attached to being fat, then actually you won't care. You could look in the mirror and go, God, I look really fat in this. Just get changed to a different outfit and go out. it won't matter to you. Like, you're not using it in a harmful way with yourself. I mean, you still probably shouldn't think yourself, but do you know what I mean? Whereas if you think being fat means you're unlovable, you're disgusting, nobody likes you, nothing looks good on you, and that's what it means to be fat, then that's what makes you upset. So I was like, really work on what it means to you. To be whatever. We've all got one word we use the most with ourselves, haven't we? Whether it's ugly, disgusting, fat, we've got like one keyword. We use other ones here and there, but we have our favorite that we like to abuse ourselves with generally. So I would say to sit and journal all the different things using that word means. If somebody is that, what does it say about them? And then challenge the hell out of all of those things.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. What, like, say, I got a workbook in my in the membership that's what am I making it mean about me? Because it is exactly that, isn't it? Like you're saying, and certainly when it comes to scale drama, for example, you know, because again, that machine will just crap out a number, and half the time it's not telling you the truth. But again, you know, we can put so much stall out for that, isn't it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
It might be, you know, appearancy wise, you know, it's a similar kind of thing, like you say, that we'll go in on ourselves over it, and it doesn't have to be like that. And that was such a huge revelation, because again, I came from you know, the importance of having I'm trying to say, like, self-deprecation. So I would self-deprecate a lot, for example, not realizing the power of those words. And in fact,
we're always listening, aren't we? That's the thing. We're always listening to ourselves. Our brain, like, you'll know, doesn't know the difference between what's true or not true. It just believes whatever we tell it. So, you know, we'll always say, I think it might have been Rob Dial was saying in one of his podcasts ages ago, he's like, you know, people can say things to us over and over again, but if you don't believe it, it's not a problem. He said, so if someone, you know, if someone could be saying to you, you know, you're fat, you're fat, you're fat, you're fat, you're fat. It's not a problem unless you start to believe you're fat. So then when you start using the language with yourself and saying, oh, I am fat, that's when it's harmful. Like, you know, I think his example is if you're walking down the street and someone said, oh my God, your blue hair is disgusting. And you're like, I've got brown hair. Like, it's not, I don't like, you're talking nonsense. It wouldn't matter to you, because actually you're like, you don't identify as that. So it's when we start to identify ourselves with it, you know, like the fat Faye thing, when we start to identify, oh, that is who I am. I am fat Faye. That is my identity. That at that point,
that was the shift.
Yeah.
And I don't normally answer questions as we're sort of recording, and then somebody's asked a question in the chat, but I think it's quite an important one, actually. I don't know whether you've clocked it come in, where somebody said, can you talk about disability and people with disability? And it just caught my eye, because as I said, I don't usually do them even though they're live, because otherwise I get a little bit distracted. But actually I think that's actually quite an important one as well, actually, that what's again from an identity point of view, and like I say, that connectivity, that sometimes, you know, you might have a health condition or a disability where we can sometimes limit ourselves quite a bit because there's, for whatever reason. I don't know whether you've got any thoughts on that. Like I say, it just caught my eye, and it was just thought, actually,
I've not really switched onto comments. I hadn't seen it, and I think it's a really tricky one, isn't it? And I think it's a really tricky one because obviously, like, I haven't got a disability, like a physical disability, so I can't possibly begin to understand what it's like to have one, if that makes sense. But I know that, you know, there are things that physically you might not be able to do, and I think sometimes it's working on being okay with the things that we can't do and focus on the things that we can do and focusing more on them, making sure we're around people who do accept as they are, who don't focus on it as well. Like, sometimes I think, you know, whether it's disabilities or other things, when we kind of focus on it a lot, and it's kind of one of the key things that we identify as a person with, it can be quite harmful. So maybe be in circles where actually our disability isn't the focus of what people talk about to us about. So it's not about that all the time. But definitely, like, it's a lot of mindset work, I imagine. You know, aside from the practical things that we can and can't do, obviously, and kind of having to come to terms with that and grieve it. Like, if we've had it and then we've lost it, you know, the grieving process there, I imagine, to be able to do it. I know, and I can only talk from the books I've read and like the interviews I've read with people who have disabilities, and also then probably being people who didn't have a disability and then had a disability, whether it's because of an injury or just a disease. And I feel like most of it has come down to them around their mindset and what they believe it means about them. Again, that meaning piece, like if we lose a limb or we can't walk, do we believe that means that we don't have freedom anymore and we can't do things? Because obviously there are people who go skydiving still or do things and have similar things. So I think it is really about working on that belief that we still can do lots of other things, and that it might limit us in a certain capacity, but it doesn't limit us as much as sometimes I probably imagine, because again, I can only imagine that we believe that it does. And again, said with the privilege of not having one, obviously.
Same.
But maybe it's whether it's if there's a particular angle from the disability they wanted us to think about.
Yeah, I don't know whether they're still watching and listening. I'll keep an eye for the chat coming through, but it does strike me as and well, it always strikes me that no matter what I talk about, there is always sort of that running theme, you know. So obviously I always just harp on about weight loss, but actually what we may go through from a weight loss point of view, you know, we can go through just as much when we are underweight as overweight, and like say physically able to not having physical abilities, and like I say, that identity piece, isn't it? You know, so again, if I was told all the way through that I was fat, or I was dumb, or I was this, or I was that, or the other, you know, and all those things I got told, and I believed them all the way through you know, the youth. And again, it may well be that, like say, when you've got a disability, and again, you'll have been told things if it's something that you've perhaps had since birth, or like you say, I very much believe that there can be a grieving process, having been very close to people who have had diagnoses of different things along the way, like say health conditions, sometimes disability, not disability, and also seeing from in sort of my day job kind of point of view, when people have long-term illnesses, just noticing how different people react differently to sometimes having the same diagnosis for something even. So again, it can very much knock into your self-esteem, especially, and like again with anything that we work on, sometimes again there's always that mindset, because again for people who aren't in our world, they won't necessarily always know that again your thoughts lead to your feelings, lead to your actions and your results. So
yeah,
it was always quite interesting. So yeah, sorry, I caught you on the hop with that one. It's just I just thought you know what, it's a really important topic. Yeah, but like say same as you, I've got experience through other people, but not necessarily myself. But so yeah, but we can obviously circle back round. Like I said, this is going to go out on podcast and YouTube, but there are videos, live videos to watch, and we will be coming back round and answering those questions. And one of the questions, well, I think we've sort of been touching on it really, but again, sort of that societal element, and I think that can come into what we were just talking about, as well as, like say, societal beauty standards, how everything's portrayed in the media and social media. I mean, I'm certainly now on social media with running the business a lot more than I ever used to be, and I'm very, very acutely aware of the messaging that I see all day, every day. I don't know about you.
Yeah, and it's so, but it's so I think because we're mindful to have our eye out for it, we see it, but I think sometimes it's so sly, isn't it? All the messaging that goes on, and I mean we get inundated all the time, particularly on social media, don't we? And it doesn't matter what settings we put on, what happens, things will pop up all the time. And I'm sure the phone listens to you, doesn't it? So sometimes if I'm having a conversation with someone about something, all of a sudden I'm seeing sponsored ads for something related to it. But I think we've just got to be really, really mindful of the things we have around. Like I stopped watching the news a long time ago.
I don't watch the news either.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes I'm like, oh, there's an election coming up. All right, I'll probably get post. I'm like, it's like my partner's always like, you're so ignorant, Natalie, and I'm like, well, perhaps. But I'm like, I don't
want happier for not watching the news.
Yeah, I do not want to eat my cereal in the morning whilst looking at all the tragedy across the world. And that's not because I want to ignore the tragedy of the world. Yeah. It's more because that doesn't mentally, for me, I get very attached to things. So I'm quite, I'm a very emotional person. So if I see something on the news and it winds me up, I will be peed off, and I'll find it really hard to wind myself back down. I'll like, I need an hour now to go and like relax. If I see something that upsets me, like it triggers me to feel upset, and I'm like, why would I do that to myself?
Yeah,
why on earth set my day up that way? You know, and I think like I'm not very good at watching reality TV because I just get triggered by people all the time. So I'm like, it's hard, isn't it, getting that balance of exposing yourself to triggers so that you work through the ones that matter to work through. But like at the end of the day, we don't have to work on all of our triggers. If we can just remove a trigger, just get rid of it. Like we're not, you know, but yeah, I think it's so hard. And the thing is that most things, I think there was an interview somewhere about it, and it was talking about on social media how people are more likely to put out posts that are infuriating to people or are polarizing, because actually the algorithms like that more, and they push it out more because they know people will react more to it.
Because people comment and react,
and that just spreads it. And I'm like, how messed up is that? Even algorithms of Facebook and Instagram are there to push out, the designed to push out posts that are more likely to anger people or have a negative spin. You know, and I'm like, what is that? Like, it's just really messed up. We've got to be really careful.
Yeah, and I think you're touching on it there as well, and you said it earlier about hanging around, you know, if you've been hanging around people that perhaps can impact you, and again, just being mindful of what your energy is being spent on, isn't it? And even subliminally, because again, our subconscious is always watching and taking it all in, even if you think you're scrolling past all those adverts. And you can imagine what kind of adverts I get on mine all the time, and I just get angry as I'm going past all the diet adverts. Just get out of yeah, exactly. You know, but again, that just shows how wrong it could be, because I say I get all the adverts for all the diets, and I'm just like, I couldn't be the least interested person in joining Weight Watchers or Noom or whatever. I get really offended by the fasting ones because they show me
fast. I'm like, oh my god, I'd be so hungry.
Yeah, no, I'd be the worst. I'd be hangry as well. But I mean, again, each to their own. Do whatever you want as long as it works for you and with love. But no, there's a couple of particular adverts that show up, and it sort of shows this shrinking body kind of thing, and it gets me really annoyed.
Yes, animated woman, and she's walking, isn't she?
Yes,
And I'm like, what is this?
Just that to me is like suggesting that you know the one or other's better, and again, that just you know, that's not.
It's interesting, and it comes off something you said earlier as well, because they are always still. Even if the advert is about weight, it is still a person, whether it's an animated person or a real person, who is also aesthetically good looking. They don't have cellulite, they don't have stretch marks, they have like the right proportion of boobs and bottom, like, you know, they have flawless skin, they have a symmetrical face. It's never like just a normal Joe Blogs or plain Jane and they're only showing the weight loss. It's always someone, when it's an advert, rather than like someone before or after picture, it's always someone who meets every single tick box of social. It's not just weight, which then leads us to, we lose the weight and then we go, oh, but I've got stretch marks and she doesn't. Oh, but I've got, like, my eyebrows aren't thick and bushy like hers. Oh my god, my nose is bigger than hers. Like, we'll still find the flaw, because actually they're not selling as weight loss, they're selling as perfection. Basically.
And so I will say it's a mismatch of expectation versus reality is what creates the suffering, isn't it? Really,
absolutely. 100%. And I think I think, yeah, we just got to, I always say when it comes to like bodies, like just don't focus on it. Like just focus on other stuff. Because, you know, we often find that, I know when I first set up and came into the online space, every other single person who talked about body confidence or body image, all that kind of stuff, was very much about being in their bikinis and showing all the rolls off and let me show you my cellulite and stretch marks to make you, and I get that, because it's showing us all that you know, we all have it, like, and it is that connection piece, and I get that. And I'm in some groups that are very like the body positive groups, but it's selfie after selfie after selfie after selfie. And I bought this dress. What do you guys think? And I'm like, what is this? This is just, all we're doing here is we are focusing on aesthetics. You know, if every picture of me is about me showing you my rolls, then I'm just showing you my body all the time. And if my aim is to get you to stop thinking about your body, then how does keep showing you a body help you to move away from that focus? So I find it quite strange, in a very funny place, the body confidence world, because I think it brings a lot of positive things, but I think it also just keeps us thinking about bodies all the time, whether, you know, like, we're constantly looking and judging a body, like whether we think it's in a positive way or a negative way. We're looking at bodies all the time. We're looking at whether someone is bigger or smaller, whether they have cellulite, whether they don't. We're still looking. Whether we're looking to make ourselves feel better because they have it and we have it, and therefore we're connected. But, you know, if I'm looking around the pool and I'm looking for the women who have rolls so I can feel better, is that body confidence, body positivity? I'm probably not. Probably not. If I'm looking around and going, oh, look at her playing with the kids in the pool, that looks fun, I might get in the pool and play with my kids as well. Now that's what my real.
Yeah. Suddenly lost your audio. I'm not sure whether. Can you hear me all right? You weren't muted.
That better?
Oh yeah, but it didn't have the mute sign.
Cut me off.
That was a really important point.
On a rant, muter.
Yeah, they'll be like me. Like, so we get, but again, it shows the passion that we've got, and I think it is. Again, it's always a funny space to be in. I say I kind of walk in similar myself, you know, because I'll occasionally put out a side by side. I very rarely do it because, again, I don't try to do that comparison, and if I do, it's always with more of a look at try and look beyond that and sort of see the difference, because all of my photos before I was just like this, you know, and I wasn't really, whereas now I'm just like, here I am, you know. But I'll always say, if I never lost a pound but I felt the way that I felt, I would still be happy. It's what I've changed and who I've become and how I feel inside that will always be my biggest takeaway from my journey.
And I think when you do that, your messaging that goes with it is very much so like, this hasn't been done by yo-yo crash dieting or fasting. Like, that's the point.
It's really hard to do it, but it was a bit of a funny line to walk, you know, in terms of my messaging, a bit like what you were saying there, you know, that it's a funny kind of place to be, really, you know.
And I think sometimes I know when I first set up, I know when I was talking to my sister about it, and she said something that had been on my mind, which had been putting me off doing it. And she was saying, like, this isn't what I think, but do you ever worry that people will be like, why are you talking about body image? You're a thin person. Like, of course, what's your problem? Kind of attitude. And I'm like, it's crossed my mind a lot. And I know that I've had before, I've had people, I think once on one of my posts, and I'd seen a couple of different people do it on other people who would talk about body confidence, talking about body image or self-esteem, stuff like that, but from a body angle on that post. And it was a thin person, like myself, in a smaller person's body. And people commented underneath, and it was people who are like in the body positive space, who that is what they do, that is their coaching as well, but they're giving it always. I think one of the comments once was, oh, I love it when thin people talk about body acceptance. And I thought, wow, your body confidence coaching, you still got that judgment. You probably want to go away and work on that a little bit. I thought, what an awful, like, why can't we understand that, like, everyone can have problems? Because that's like saying,
I know a lot of people who are smaller framed that have worse, if not more, confidence issues than some, you know, again, it's a
like
personal journey, isn't it?
Yeah, if you've got it all and you're rich, what are you depressed about? It's that kind of mentality, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's a really funny place, and it is sometimes I'll go to write a post and, like you say, I'll second guess myself for a minute and think, I'm going across the wrong way, or does that sound like, I mean, we were talking before, weren't we, about like makeup for lives and stuff, and like I used to question, like, should I not wear makeup because I'm saying that we need to accept ourselves, but then I want to wear makeup because I feel more confident if I've got it on the camera and I won't be thinking about it. Yeah, okay, that's slightly vain, but you know, it's a really funny one, and I think sometimes we get so scared to do anything. And now I'll show up in all sorts of ways. So in my Facebook, it must be like, well, what's Nat turning up like this Friday? Sometimes I'm there and I look like I'm going for a night out, and then other times I've got a hoodie on, my hair up, look like I've like not slept for a week. So you get what you give depending on my mood.
That's good, and it's a sign of your. It's a sign and a compliment to your own journey, isn't it? I mean, I'm not quite at the stage yet where I think I've posted one selfie of myself in my Facebook group where I had no makeup, because I'm just not used to wearing no makeup. I've got quite difficult skin, rosacea and freckles and all sorts of things, and it's more the fact that I don't look in the mirror. If I look in the mirror without makeup, I'm like, who is that person? Because I don't actually, that to me is not me, because I'm so used to seeing myself like this. I mean, even now because I'm so used to seeing myself on the lives and video calls at work and coaching, even if I take my glasses off, I'm like, who's that person? I identify as having somebody with glasses now, you know. It's like, it's funny how your brain works, you know.
But like we said before, but it all comes to that place of like the purpose behind it. You know, certain ways to feel good sometimes. If you want to feel sexy, we might put a certain style of clothes on, like, and I think it's perfectly fine to do that, isn't it? You know, I think if we get to a point where we can't put makeup on to open the door to the milkman because we're so worried that they'll find us unattractive, then we probably cross the line. But you know, to do little things that are vanity wise to a certain level, because actually they just make us feel good, then go right for
the Amazon people know exactly what I look like. But
you know, it's just personal choice, isn't it? Some of us like like we all have choices on how we like to be. Some people like to dye their hair, other people don't, and it's like we all have. I want to re-dye my hair actually. But we all have them different things, and that is okay. Like sometimes we think, if I accept myself, it means that I have to never want to change. I have to just this is me, and it's not about that. It's about, like you said, it's accepting all aspects of us. You know,
and what feels good is how it feels. Like you said, it's how it feels, and if you feel icky, then that's the bit that's the sign that perhaps there's something that needs to change, isn't it, really? Whereas, like I say, if you're coming at it, and again, I think that was the key message, hopefully, that everybody's taking home tonight, is that, again, it's about that self-love piece, isn't it? And working on feeling comfortable, but in your own, you know, it's your own journey. You get to decide what it is and how you want to be, really, isn't it?
Exactly. And it is completely bespoke to you. Like, I can't, because some people say to me, oh, what self-care should I do? I'm like, I don't know. What self-care do you want to do? How do you want? I'm always like, just ask yourself how you want to feel, and then go, how can I make myself feel that way? And then whatever comes up, do that. You know, because if I want to feel relaxed, because some people that might be going for a run. I couldn't think of anything less relaxing.
that would be me.
I lie on the settee and I watch Netflix. There you go, I'm relaxing. Or I might go for a meal and have a glass of wine. Like, that would be my idea of like some relaxing. So we all have different opinions, like, and to feel good. I was talking with a friend today actually about love languages. So like that's the same, isn't it? Like how I might like to feel love might be different to someone else's. So no one can ever say to you, do this, do that, and you'll feel this way. That's not going to happen. But people can say, be aware of this. This is how this works. Go and explore for you how you might make that shift for you, because we all have different thoughts. We all attach different meanings to it. We enjoy different things. Like, we're all very different people, and that is a good thing. You know, and you know, I would say to you, like, with the self-love piece or the body love piece and whatever you want, language you want to use, I'm like, don't think that love means that you think you're bloody wonderful all the time. Like when you have body confidence, it doesn't mean that every time you look in the mirror you're like, oh my god, I'm so hot. Like have to do that, you know. And when we love ourselves, it doesn't mean that we like ourselves all the time, or that we always think we make the best decisions.
Yeah, or that we go around thinking like our poop don't stink.
Yeah, like, we know ourselves, and we love ourselves in spite of it. It's a bit like a partner, isn't it? Let's have it straight. Anyone out there who has a partner, has had a partner in the past, you love them to pieces, but they can irritate you on a daily basis, and they have habits that you don't like, and you love them in spite of it, and they can do things that wind you up and make you mad or upset you. It doesn't change whether you love them or not.
Yeah.
And I think trying to get that relationship with ourselves, for some reason we think we're different. And trying to get to that point with ourselves, we go, do you know what, Natalie, you have been hard work today. You have been hormonal, you have been crabby, you've probably got some apologies to make. But you know, I don't like myself any less. I don't go to bed and shame myself what an awful person I am. But so we have got to have our awareness and just like ourselves anyway. Well, love ourselves anyway. You don't always have to like
it's avoiding, like say, that shame spiral, isn't it? Really, like if they're loving ourselves to a degree, and sometimes again, I've been trying to work on sort of saying body neutrality and positivity, because like you say, it can sometimes come across as though it's going to be toxic positivity, and you can have toxic positivity as well. And so again, it's whenever it's out of kilter in some way or balance, that's where you're just trying to look at, well, which way is that pendulum swinging, and is it swinging the way that I want it to, or do I want to kind of try and guide it back another way, isn't it? So
absolutely. I always say, it's a running joke. I'll always say, well, look, anyone who smiles all the time, they're probably a serial killer. Okay, so just don't fall in for that. That's like,
thankfully I've got a resting bitch face, so I'm all right.
On my way, you have to stay like, I'm quite animated as a person anyway, so I have to say that, otherwise I do have a face that looks like I'm really unimpressed.
I'm conscious when I sat here on the lives, and obviously I can see myself, and I'm like, am I looking interested, or am I just like, because I've just got this weird neutral face? But
sometimes I watch them back and think, Natalie, why do you look so gormless while they're talking? Because I'm just listening. I'm not actually pulling an expression. I look like maybe. So if at any point I look mad with Faye on the live, I am not.
Likewise. Whatever's going on with this face. Thankfully, I've got the perfect face for podcast.
You've just got the perfect face. Perfect. Exactly. Any occasion.
I've got a face that fits on my head.
Exactly. Got your face, and that's
absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, as usual, I'm conscious of time, and as I said before we started recording to Natalie, I said, have you got a hard finish? But I did say that we probably, need to keep it tops of about an hour for everybody else to stay awake as well. But before we go, Natalie, any final words of that you'd want to share with the listeners and watchers to leave us with?
I would just say, focus on making those switches. So if you find that you do say a lot of I ams, just start hearing yourself. With my first thing, start paying attention to the way you are, start understanding how your patterns lie, and just know that whether you lose a job, lose weight, like none of those things change you as a person. Like you are you who goes through different experiences, and that is it. And if you've got anyone in your life who does not see it that way, then maybe just give them a little push to the corner.
Yeah, I love some of my coaches and teachers, again, I was never really told it, and it might sound rude, but again, the fact that we were all born infinitely worthy, and I do believe that. I do strongly believe that we were all born with, and it's just trying to tap into that. So
absolutely. And no one ever sat on their deathbed going, I wish I spent more time worrying about how I looked, or I wish I'd ate less pizza. More sit on bed. And I think there's some research that someone did, and I can't remember who it was now, and they were looking like those top 10 things that older people say. And that came up over and over and over again was, I wish I'd just enjoyed life more. I wish I'd worried less about how I looked or what people thought, and I wish I'd just done more things. And I think that's the thing, isn't it? Like, we're only here once. And I think we hold ourselves back so much out of worry that we look right, what people think, and it just makes us, doesn't it? And I believe that at the end of everything, whether it's, we think we want to lose weight, or we want to change jobs, or we want to get in a relationship or get out of a relationship, whatever it might be, generally I always believe we're just chasing happiness. Like, that's what we want, and maybe we're picking ways that aren't that helpful for us, but I think we all just want to feel happy and just enjoy life.
Yeah.
So it's just finding ways, like you said, adding in things that bring that to life rather than trying to take things out. Because when we try and take things out, it's the shoulds, the guilt, the shame.
Anything that's restrictive just is going to make you feel pants. It's not sustainable. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
Beautiful. Well, thank you for coming along, Natalie. It has been an absolute pleasure, as I knew that it would be. And so we will love you and leave you all for this week. Thanks for listening. And don't forget, if you want to boost your life and weight loss the AAA way, check out the relevant links for today's show in the description. Speak soon.